What does it mean to be good at resilience? What is it that resilient people have that less resilient people have less of? That's what we're going to talk about in today's video. Hello, welcome to Black, White, Gray, Yellow. This is the second video in my series on resilience. This series loosely follows the structure of the U.S. Army's Master Resilience Training, or MRT program, for which I am a certified Master Resilience Trainer. I also spent 13 months as my state's State Resilience Coordinator. Now, of course, I want to be respectful to the program, meaning that I can't teach their proprietary material, so I've put everything in my own words based on the underlying research throughout this series, so you can share these videos freely. In today's video, I want to talk about what it means to be good at resilience. What are the things that resilient people have that less resilient people have less of? To answer this question, I'm going to refer to a part of the MRT program that I think is sorely under-taught. It's what the MRT program calls the 6 competencies of resilience. Now, there are many models of resilience, many of which may break it up into 6 or more components, so this is just one perspective. I am going to stick to the 6 competencies that the MRT program uses, though, since they are what I am most familiar with, and also because that's what makes this video the most valuable as a companion to the MRT material. But I will be describing each of the competencies and their significance in my own words. Now, in contrast to the specific skills we'll go over in future videos, these competencies aren't things you can just practice outright, but things that you will get better at by practicing skills that build those competencies. With each skill going forward, we'll discuss which competency or competencies it builds. If you determine after today's video that you struggle with one or more of these, you can focus on the skills that build those. Without further ado, let's introduce the 6 things resilient people have. Okay, first on the list is self-awareness, and I want to start by talking about what self-awareness is not. To be clear, we are not talking about self-consciousness. That's something different. Self-awareness also does not mean knowing everything about yourself. We can spend our whole lifetime in introspection and never know everything, so it's good that complete knowledge isn't required for resilience. What is required is the willingness to introspect, which means to inspect yourself inwardly. This requires that you develop a less certain, more curious attitude about yourself. What I mean by that is this. In order to learn new things about yourself, you first have to admit to yourself that you don't already know them. That can probably be said about learning anything. Self-awareness, as a resilience competency, is just about knowing yourself well enough to be able to identify and ideally intercept your counterproductive thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and your counterproductive thinking, emotional, and behavioral patterns. Mindfulness practice often starts with noticing your thoughts and emotions and distancing yourself from them. This is an example of a skill that builds self-awareness, and we'll talk more about this in a future video. Next is self-regulation, which is about controlling your thoughts, behaviors, and emotions, and even your physiology. Self-regulation is not, I repeat, not about bottling up your thoughts and emotions, but about expressing them productively. It's about being able to channel your energy away from the counterproductive thoughts, behaviors, and emotions and toward the more helpful ones. It's about having the self-control to perform well, whether we're talking about an athletic event or simply a conversation with a colleague or loved one. Sometimes self-regulation builds on self-awareness, but it doesn't have to. Oftentimes we need self-regulation the most when we're under stress, which is often not a time particularly conducive to mindfulness. Deliberate breathing is an example of a tool that allows us to regain control over our thoughts, emotions, and physiology, even when our higher-level reasoning may be compromised, such as when we are very afraid, overly excited, or under a high level of exertion. We'll talk more about deliberate breathing in another video. Next on the list is mental agility, and again I want to start by talking about what this isn't. It isn't about being genius-level smart all the time. This is something anyone can learn how to do. And while you can say that it is about thinking flexibly, that does not mean it's what I would call mental gymnastics, which typically refers to deceiving yourself or others. Remember, this pairs well with honest reflection and self-awareness. One of the hallmarks of mental agility is the ability to understand where other people are coming from, which does not require you to agree with them. Just like with self-awareness, this requires a degree of open-mindedness to try new things, in this case, new perspectives, without being committed to adopting them if they don't work for you. A mind with mental agility is like the educated mind in Aristotle's famous quote, "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it." Put another way, if you're familiar with this book, Don Miguel Ruiz Jr.'s The 5 Levels of Attachment, mental agility means not being overly attached to any given ideas. We may talk more about the 5 levels of attachment in another video. Mental agility also means being able to think something through. If this, then what? This includes when we are presented with new information. If this new information is true, then what are the implications for what I thought I already knew? You can check out my earlier video on fighting misinformation with what if for an example of thinking your way through a logic problem. The purpose of this, of trying to see the world or a particular situation from different perspectives, or being able to think through different potential scenarios, is to be able to see the world or that situation accurately. The more accurate our information about a situation, the more appropriately, i.e., helpfully, we can respond to it. And that's ultimately what resilience is all about, being able to respond to any situation with purposeful action. There is another competency on our list that is in large part about seeing the world accurately. So without further ado, let's turn our attention to optimism. Okay, now we turn to optimism, and this is by far the competency that I think is most misunderstood. I'll date myself here, but I think the first example I ever saw of an optimist was the character Eugene from Hey Arnold. He's the type of optimist you'd characterized by an ostrich with its head in the sands, just completely oblivious to any negativity, his mood apparently impervious to misfortune. I think it's fair to say that many people still think of this type of character when they hear the word optimist or optimism, and understandably they want to distance themselves from that honestly maladaptive behavior. So thankfully, I'm pleased to report, real optimism isn't about that at all. Rather, I argue, optimism is about seeing the world accurately. Okay, hear me out. In this case, seeing the world accurately means fighting the negativity bias. The negativity bias, as you recall, is our natural human tendency to notice the bad more than the good. And if we do notice the good, we're less likely to remember it. And if we do remember it, we're less likely to consider it important. And even if we do consider it important, we're much less likely to dwell on it than we are to dwell on the bad. Now, there are some good reasons for this, potentially. Bad things are sometimes problems that take some brain power to fix, hence valuable time spent dwelling on them. Maybe the bad things in your day really are more significant than the good things in your day. We're also much less likely to end up dead, speaking in evolutionary terms, if we fail to notice or remember something positive than if we fail to notice or remember some threat. However, getting to a point where we fail to notice the good at all is also maladaptive. One possibility is succumbing to fear or anxiety, seeing only threats around you and hiding from the world. Another option is becoming dark and cynical. In either case, failure to see any good in the past or present can put you in a position where you are unable to see any good in the present or future, even when it's there. This can cause you to miss boundless opportunities, from advancing in your career to connecting with loved ones, or to otherwise make poor decisions. Optimists have also been shown to live longer, so we all have some incentive to find some good wherever it exists. This also isn't to say that the good and the bad will always balance. There may well not be equal amounts of each. Again, this is about being realistic. A particular situation may be quite dire, but the optimist in that scenario is able to focus on what he, she, or they can control and hold on to that as a source of hope. Because optimism is also about hope. It's about having something that gets you up and keeps you going. It's about finding that source of strength, something you can control that gives you the almost spiritual belief that you have some control over your future. Wow, that got deep. It kind of is. Faith is a kind of optimism in a way, and there is an overlap here between mental health and spiritual health. I'll do a whole other video on spiritual health at some point, but know that it has nothing to do with religion. Being spiritually healthy means having faith in something that gives you hope, or some sense of optimism, or some sense of control over your life and/or destiny. The topic of faith also brings us to our next competency. The next thing resilient people have is connection, which is also a core value of this channel. By connection, we mean being able to build quality relationships in all domains of life, with colleagues, friends, family, and romantic partners. We mean communicating effectively so that we are understood, and we mean understanding others better through empathy. We mean learning when and how to ask for help and understanding that this is a strength, not a weakness. We also mean understanding when and how to ask others for support. Communication and connection may only be 1/6 of resilience as defined here, but it is possibly the one I will return to the most often with my other videos on this channel once the resilience series is complete. In the volatile climate of at least the United States today, and to varying degrees in other nations as well, the ability to communicate effectively is about the only tool we have to de-escalate tensions with everyone from strangers on the internet to, especially, our loved ones. This means that in order for our communities of all shapes and sizes to be resilient, we need these skills in connection more than ever. And this brings us to our last competency. The last competency from our list today is understanding what are called character strengths, which is effectively about recognizing and learning to leverage the strengths in every individual. Let me clarify. This is not about participation trophies. It also isn't about any one set of characteristics being better than another. It's about understanding the strengths of different people, what they bring to the table, and about having confidence that all strengths are genuinely valuable. The concept of character strengths is based on research by Drs. Christopher Peterson and Martin Seligman of the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania. Their book, Character Strengths and Virtues, a Handbook and Classification, outlines in-depth 24 character strengths organized into 6 core virtues, which we'll talk a lot more about in a future video. Research on character strengths continues to this day at the Values in Action Institute on Character in Cincinnati, Ohio, and research findings available on their website include things like study of Mexican-American college students finding that perseverance and curiosity were significant predictors of self-efficacy with career decisions, and higher levels of caring, self-control, and inquisitiveness were desirable for long-term mating with the most substantial preference for self-control. You can take this survey yourself for free to get your list of character strengths on the University of Pennsylvania website. The link is in the description. You can also access it from the VIA Institute's webpage. Understanding one's own character strengths helps build a resilient individual, and understanding the character strengths of others and the power of different strengths working together helps build resilient teams and communities. Again, we'll talk a lot more about this in a future video. So those are the 6 things resilient people have that less resilient people have less of: self-awareness, self-regulation or self-control, mental agility, optimism, connection, and understanding of character strengths. You'll hear about all of these again as we start talking about specific skills we can practice that will help build these competencies. And that's all for this video. In the next video, we'll start going over the first specific resilience skill. If you want a notification as soon as that video comes out, click the bell icon or subscribe for quick access to this channel. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and tell me in the comments which of these competencies resonates most with you, either as one that you're already great at or the one that you need the most help with. Until next time, my name is Diana, and this has been Black, White, Gray, Yellow.